All right, and welcome back to the Paisan Sports podcast presented by Recliner Media. Dante DePlacido joined as always by Zach Deal of What's the Deal Sports. So I've got to ask, what's the deal with the Phillies? They can't hit, they can't pitch, they can't seem to do anything. What's the deal?
I thought it was interesting that they've already went into the well. I mean, what was it? It was either last season or the year before. I referenced this numerous times on the podcast how they were the last team in baseball, might have been last season, to bring a prospect up to the major leagues, and I think that was, Otto Kemp? If I believe correctly. Was it Otto Kemp? Or no, it was the pitcher that they ended up trading, Mick Abel, right? Or it might have been 2 seasons ago. I don't want to, get off.
Yeah, no, Mick Abel, I think it was 2 seasons ago. Last season, I believe.
But they just brought up a guy who wasn't even ranked in their top 30 prospects, and it was because a lot of people can see him as a specialist. He is 25 years old, in Felix Reyes, and he comes up in his first at bat. I also thought it was extremely interesting that he was the 7th Philly in Phillies history specifically, not in MLB history because there's been a lot more, but I still would have believed the stat if they said in MLB history, because it is pretty rare for a player to hit a home run in their first at bat. And not only that, he hit a home run off one of the best pitchers of this generation in Chris Sale.
Yeah, no, the funny thing is, I'll be completely honest, I had never heard of him until they gave him the call up. And then
He hit 4 home runs in spring training. And he was the 2025 league MVP of the league that he played in. So he's been highly touted, but he wasn't in the top 30 prospects because people think that his defense is just kind of blah. He had a stint at shortstop and in the infield at third base as well. He was really bad at third base. And then he's been getting some time in the outfield, and he's been a lot more competent. And he hasn't actually made an error in AAA ball this year, so that's why the Phillies felt comfortable with bringing him up. And they had him in, the 6 or 7 hole last night, and he provided the spark. And it was funny because the game was on Fox, and the national broadcast was just speaking of who is going to give the Phillies the spark as the ball is being hit out of the park. And it was pretty shocking, like I said, coming off of Chris Sale, one of the best pitchers in the game right now and of the past decade and generation.
Yeah, and, looking at what Felix Reyes has been doing in the minors, which is what, of course, the first thing I looked at ahead of yesterday's game. This year in AAA, he was batting .333 with 6 home runs, which, that's demonstrating a lot of power. 6 home runs this early in the season, especially in AAA, which I believe starts after the MLB season, if I'm not mistaken. I could be mistaken. But showing a lot of power in AAA. And last year in AA, he batted, I think, .326 for the year. Between AA and AAA, he had a total of 16 home runs as well last season.
Not to cut your tangent off, though, but of guys that you have heard about and that we've seen been floating around the possibility of making it to the major leagues, like you would think like a guy like Gabriel Rincones would get the opportunity. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There's a lot of guys that you would think would possibly get the opportunity, right? I haven't looked at what Aiden Miller's been doing in the minors this year. Now, so. He's banged up. Yeah. I also would think of, even though it seems a bit early, just looking at what he did in the World Baseball Classic, you would think maybe he's ready for the bigs, and that would be Dante Nori. I wouldn't be shocked if they would have brought him up this
but stylistically, do you think Dante Nori, I like him as a long-term prospect, and he needs a little bit more time to develop, and a lot of people think that he has reached like a certain cap of his development so far because he's already a solid player. They need pop in the lineup, which
that's
Dante
what I was
going to
say next. Yeah, that's what I was going to say next, is when you look at the prospect they brought up at the start of the year, right? You bring up Justin Crawford, a guy who's just a pure contact hitter, speedster on the base pads. So I think it's a good balance for your next guy up after that to be a power hitter, especially too when you look at what the Phillies lineup currently has. You have more contact hitters than you have power hitters. Your guy who is 6'4" playing third base is more of a contact hitter than a power hitter.
Interesting stat you can go on after this, but interesting stat. You referenced contact hitting. The Phillies, the last time I checked 2 days ago, the Phillies ranked 23rd in league batting average at .229. The Mets were at 28, and the Braves were at 2. I'm drawing a blank real quick. The Nationals were at 6, and the Marlins were floating between the top 5 as well. So pretty much the opposite result of how you would see the NL East playing out is playing out with that. And the Nationals are scary because James Wood and C.J. Abrams are legit. And if they start adding like something actually to that, which it's funny because you know who else is having a pretty decent season and has kind of revived himself a little bit is Josh Bell. And if they would have kept on to it, just like had like at least a guy like that fringe in their lineup, maybe they would have something. And they're floating around 500, so they just got rid of Mackenzie Gore.
Yeah, I was about to say that because I've really liked the Nationals rebuild ever since trading Juan Soto. A guy I was high on before he even went to the Nationals was Mackenzie Gore, and the fact, if he was still on the team instead of in Texas, I would feel quite confident actually about the Washington Nationals moving forward. I mean, they still do have a very good young core, but it does suck for them that Mackenzie Gore is now in Texas.
And the Marlins just have a bunch of no-name guys that are actually pretty decent. And none of them are like really outliers stand out, but they have a bunch of guys that mesh well together that play different types of roles that keeps them within games. And then Sandy is just a beast. Like he's just an absolute savage. Yeah. He gets pissed when he gets the ball taken from him in the mounds. Like there was a game earlier in the season where they didn't allow him to go the full complete game, and he was in a little bit of trouble. I think he just had allowed a double, but he had like either 0 runs allowed or 1 run the entire game. And that was the game where the Reds and Ellie De La Cruz stole home to tie the game in the bottom of the 9th, and they ended up losing with that decision. So, I mean, the teams in the NL East, with how bad the Mets are on the rubber match today and possibly could be swept.
The Phillies could be swept. 7-14 right now. The Phillies are 8-12. Two teams that have spent tons of money.
And they've secured losing 3 straight home series and could be swept in this series after giving the Cubs, the hottest team in baseball.
Well, in terms of getting swept, and we'll get to this in a second, but I do feel confident with Andrew Painter on the mound tonight. But going back to what I was saying about the lineup, right? So, right now, your big power hitter is Kyle Schwarber, right? You have a guy who's a decent power hitter at this stage in his career, a decent power hitter in Bryce Harper. And you have another guy who is only a power hitter, not really a contact hitter, and hasn't been showing a ton of power thus far in Adolis Garcia. Outside of that, you have Bryson Stott, you have Alec Boehm, you have Justin Crawford, you have Trey Turner, you have a lot of contact hitters. JT Realmuto, I wouldn't consider to be much of a power hitter at this stage in his career either. He's probably good for 15 home runs. So to add a guy,
in the playoffs, though.
Yeah, but looking at the regular season, Brandon Marsh, another contact hitter. So to add a Felix Reyes who has demonstrated his power immediately in the big leagues is a very good sign. Now, they did call him up because they made room by putting Yohan Duran on the 15-day disabled list, which that sucks. So I do wonder what they do once Duran returns. I think they should keep Reyes in the bigs, but I don't know. Looking at the Phillies 26-man MLB roster right now, don't they have that one random guy up, like Moore or something? Could they send him down?
Moore? Yeah. They signed in the
Yeah.
the utility infielder.
Yeah, I would send him down, honestly, because Reyes is a guy who can play multiple positions. He can play outfield. He can play first base. He can play third base.
No, I'm not throwing him at third. I'm not throwing him at first.
You also have Edmundo Sosa, who can play multiple positions. You have Otto Kemp, who can play third base or play left field. So considering, the guys off the bench can all play multiple positions right now, I would say you're not in need of that utility infielder and more, and I would send him down when Duran returns. Or maybe send somebody else in the bullpen down.
Yeah,
maybe Zach Pop. Maybe Zach Pop. Maybe get him out.
It's also so early in the season, like we talked about them dipping the well this early, where they could really like him, send him back down. He gets a little taste of the MLB, keeps progressing and producing, and then comes back up later in the season. Not even just like September call-ups, but if they need a little pop, see how the roster goes around trade deadline, and then bring him back up for an added power bat, maybe with a little bit more focus on the contact department and just development in the outfield, and then he could be a reliable option. But something that's interesting that they're doing that's counterproductive is if we look at their batting average as a team, it obviously fluctuates like with how many games that they play and playing almost every single day. But Brandon Marsh and Justin Crawford have been their most consistent hitters, and they platoon those guys. So it's like, why are you platooning your two best hitters when
Justin Crawford needs to be playing every day.
Yeah, him being that young and not playing every single day makes no sense. And I think
makes no sense.
They put way too much into that, and we kind of never really talk about how big of a platoon that Bryson Stott and Edmundo Sosa actually do play. Like Bryson Stott, there's a lot of times where he doesn't play, but
good.
Yeah,
you know,
they just need to move on from Alec Bohm and Bryson Stott. I don't even think that's crazy to say. They just need to get rid of
that was
those
one
two
thing
guys.
I wanted to talk about. Was depending on how the Phillies' record looks at the deadline, do you want to move Bohm, Stott, or
I'd move both of them.
Both of them, yeah. And personally,
I think it's
would.
Like it's gotten to the point where it's like we're ushering in a new era of the daycare, which is like one of my least favorite like sports sentiments and Philadelphia sports history is the daycare. I thought that was so corny. And
VJ Max is a much better.
And then it kind of just led to like actually being true of why they call them the daycare, because they're kind of like just stuck as in like the immaturity stage of like Bryson Stott. I don't feel like is immature as a person. And I'm not going to go out and say, not knowing Alec Bohm personally, that he's immature, but a lot of the things that he shows as a player and his frustrations would lead you to believe that the narrative of him being immature could be accurate. Bryson Stott, I don't think, is the same way, but his game has been immature since he's provided as a rookie. Being on a World Series baseball team, that holds a lot of value. And then you kind of just stay in that same realm. You switch positions, but you don't hold your weight. Like, no, he does not hold his weight in the lineup whatsoever.
He does not.
And just on the reason why I want to get rid of him is because Rob Thompson, as the manager, who they just signed to an extension in December.
Which was so stupid.
Yeah, which I hate. He's sleeping in the dugout with Jesus Luzardo. That's another combo we can have in a little bit. But he's stuck in this thing where Alec Bohm and Bryson Stott still get the benefit of the doubt. Even though he benched Alec Bohm in the playoffs. He's done that before. He's made like the statement to do that, and they platoon Bryson Stott. He still has they need to be in a certain spot of the batting order. They need to be here and need to be there.
I would like to see. Here's the thing: you move on from Stott. I as much as I love Edmundo Sosa, I don't think he can be an everyday starter and hit well consistently every single day. But
he's also currently one of their most. I've heard this. Hold
on. Let me finish my thought. But if you move on from Bohm, I would like to see either Otto Kemp or Felix Reyes playing third base. They're both young guys. I would love to see what they could do in that position. I think Otto Kemp has shown some really good flashes last year that he can be a legit everyday starter. And it's not like it's not worth it to find out because Bohm isn't providing you much anyhow. I don't, and that's the thing. If you move on from Stott, there's not really like a young guy right now that's like, oh, put him at second base. I want to see what he can do. But there are two different options at third base if you move on from Bohm.
In a perfect world, I'm looking at the stats right now, and I didn't realize it was really this bad. Rafael Marchand is 1 for 23 on the season. Even though he's a legend in the minor leagues, you cannot bring the DJ back up. Why am I forgetting his name? The DJ. 5'9" catcher. 5'9" catcher, the DJ.
The fuck are you talking about?
The catcher, the famous the Phillies
fan
favorite. Yeah, I'm forgetting his name. Stubbs. You can't bring him back up.
No,
he's not good.
Not.
Rafael Marchand is literally batting 43, 1 for 23 on the season. You know how bad that is? That you cannot. Really bad. There's no balance to what your defense provides for that to be justifiable. So, in a perfect world, where I'm going with this is, they could have had Logan O'Hoppe, but then they wouldn't have Brandon Marsh. You know what I mean? So that's where the balance is between.
And listen, Brandon Marsh. Actually,
no, he's good.
He's having a good season. But listen, hitting is one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum is pitching. And there's a question I've been waiting to pose on the podcast this week, and last night it gives me, well, not the night before, it gives me another reason to pose this question, although that was expected. My question is, right now, the guys who are currently in the starting rotation, not including Zach Wheeler, who he's about to, take on a AAA stint, are Christopher Sanchez and Andrew Painter the only good starters in the Phillies rotation right now?
Well, I give Andrew Painter the benefit of the doubt. He has gotten beat up a little bit. Sometimes we see it from Christopher Sanchez, sometimes too, but Christopher Sanchez is savage.
Yeah.
Also,
he's an ace.
Also, he pitched last night. I mean, I don't want to get off topic here. You know how much I love Ronald Acuna. If I could have one player in baseball from another team, who would you say? And another player. Honestly, right now, it would be between Mike Trout and Ronald Acuna, who had one on the Phillies. But you know how much I love Ronald Acuna. He's my favorite player that's not a Philly in baseball.
I would pick someone young because I want us to start rebuilding, so I would go with a P. Crow Armstrong, but...
He's not having a good season, though, but he is a beast.
Yeah, I really do like P. Crow Armstrong.
Yeah, but where I'm going with this is... Christopher Sanchez, first pitch of the game. Brandon Marsh, absolute web gem, robs Ronald Acuna of a home run.
Yeah.
And Ashburn Alley, 401.
Yeah.
Center field. That was like an Aaron Rowan type play. So that's where I'm going with that. But the
Aaron Rowan play.
I'm just like when I think of center field, I know Shane Victorino forever, but that's a different...
Hey,
story.
you know what? This is a little off topic. It's Phillies, but it's a little off topic. But me and my cousin... and this is actually a good thing to bring up on the podcast. So me and my cousin, we were talking about... I know you don't watch... I don't think you watch this show, Always Sunny, right?
One of the writers from that show went to my high school.
Well, anyway, there's an episode of Always Sunny where Mac gets into it with a mall worker because the mall worker has never heard of Mike Schmidt. And he goes on a tangent, and then he goes, "Next, you're going to tell me you don't know who Von Hayes is." And Charlie goes, "No one knows who Von Hayes is, right?" Now, Von Hayes, a guy who played from 1983 to 1991, he had a very decent career. He was a one-time All-Star, 259 career hitter. He really had a good on-base percentage throughout his career, swiped a lot of bags, played for the Phillies for many years, right? And most people in today's generation don't know of Von Hayes. So what me and my cousin were trying to figure out is who is the modern comparison to Von Hayes, a guy who played for the Phillies for a long time, had a decent career, nothing crazy, and 20 years into the future, no one's really going to know who he is.
Off the top of my head right now, you want to know the name?
Yeah.
I'll give you $5, you guess the name off the top of my head. There's one player locked and loaded.
Locked and loaded. Well, can you give...
Hey, I don't
is
know
he a current Philly or a former Philly?
It's exactly what you just talked about.
Former Philly. I'm guessing during the Charlie Manuel era?
Around that time. Somewhere in there. I can't remember off the top of my head. I don't know if he played for that long, but you wouldn't...
Is it Pat Burrell?
No. Not new with Pat Burrell.
Well, I'm saying 20 years from now, people don't know Pat Burrell.
Draft pick in baseball. Most overall baseball fans would know who he is.
It's somebody
Marlon Byrd.
That's a good one. That's actually a good one. I don't think he was here. I don't think he was here that. Yeah, I don't think he was here that long. I do know he returned in around, I think 2013, 2014. He came back to the Phillies. How many total years with the Phillies?
5. How many teams he played for? He played for like 10 teams. And played for the Phillies twice, and he never played for any other team more than for 3 seasons. Played for the Phillies for 5 total years, and that's the most of all these teams that he's played for. So he would be considered the longevity
as a Philly that Von Hayes had.
1X All-Star.
My first thought was Victorino, but Victorino's a bigger name than Von Hayes.
How did you not? That's like...
here's the thing.
What age fan...
Hold on. Look at this, though.
Look at this. We're messing up with the camera too. We're using.
All right. But look at this. Right.
If you don't know about Shane Victorino, I feel like you can't really consider yourself a.
Well, everyone knows about Shane Victorino, but I'm sure during Von Hayes' run, everyone knew about Von Hayes. How do I go?
I asked somebody that I know is a diehard Flyers fan. that I'm close with recently, and you might not know this person, but I feel like anybody that watches the Flyers knows this person. And I was asking them about Donald Bergier, and they acted like they never heard of him. And this person has gone to like Flyers playoff games, like goes like used to have like a season ticket package, I believe. I'm like, dude, that is insane, insanity.
I'm trying to pull up
Donald
that.
Bergier, you don't know who that is? Number 87.
I'm trying to pull up that StatHead page that lets you compare players.
What
pull that up. Pull up. Oh yeah, there's StatHead. All right. So first, type in. So now go back to StatHead.
All you got to do is type. Give me the info. Give me the variables.
Shane Victorino and Von Hayes.
All right, we can't get too off topic here because I brought up Ronald Acuna to talk about the pitching with the Phillies.
Oh yeah. All right, we'll do this real quick. This is a quick side quest.
Because Andrew Painter has gotten beat up too, but when the Jesus Luzardo floodgates open, it's a whole different type of story.
Hold on, let me see if I can.
All right, we gotta keep moving here.
Well, anyway, if you look at the career stats of Von Hayes and Shane Victorino, they're quite comparable. Now, here is the one variable, though. After speaking with my father on the matter, who he was around for Von Hayes, apparently the Phillies acquired Von Hayes in a big trade, so they had high hopes for him, and he kind of was just mid throughout his whole career. So people weren't too stoked on Von Hayes, but they were stoked on Victorino.
I'll tell you one Phillies player that people will not remember. I'll tell you two. This one is probably somebody that will remember, and I actually have something of this person's down in this basement actually somewhere. It might actually be in there, and I'll wear it on the podcast one day. It's actually right there. You see that suede thing right there? You see that suede jumpsuit? You know whose that is?
Who?
Vance Worley's.
Vance wasn't here a long time, but Vance was good. When people talk about the
let me give a little side tangent here.
All right, yeah.
Vance Worley, I have a friend that is like a top big eBay seller, like for shoes.
Yeah.
And he's been doing it for a really long time, and he like handled some of Vance Worley's stuff, and he had a Jordan 5 maroon jumpsuit that's full suede, that's like Vance Worley size, so it was always hilarious for me to wear, being 5'7", and like him being his size. Yeah. So I used to wear it. It was like a whole thing. I have like pictures of my friends in it and stuff, and it's literally his jumpsuit, and I still have it to this day, which is pretty funny. He just pitched in the World Baseball Classic too.
Oh yeah,
I forget where.
Well, here's the thing about the 2011 rotation was,
other name real quick, Cameron Rupp. People don't remember.
Yeah, I remember Cameron Rupp.
People don't remember him though. He
wasn't here that long.
Only power hitter that we had during the miserable years of Phillies baseball.
And Tommy Joseph was supposed to be a power hitter, but he sucked.
Yeah.
But yeah, the 2011 rotation, everyone always shares the image of, the initial 5 stars, which was of course the 4 aces plus Joe Blanton. And I feel like a lot of people forget. Eventually, Vance Worley took over as the 5th starter, and he pitched even better than Roy Oswalt that year. He was a huge part of that team.
And the Phillies, like we talked about it before, and you see with Andrew Painter, Christopher Sanchez got boosted from 6'1" to 6'6". They just love gigantic pitchers. They traded for Carlos Estevez at the trade deadline not too long ago. They just love throwing out dudes that are just gigantic out there. So
yeah, but anyway, what were you saying about Ronald Acuna?
So Ronald Acuna got robbed by Brandon Marsh, who we have to give respect to, making that web gem in the outfield. But like I said, that was a reference to sometimes Christopher Sanchez can get caught, but the difference is Andrew Painter's young, so he has the leadway, and this is kind of expected for a guy in his rookie season. Like Jesus Luzardo, when those floodgates open, it's not just like bad in Phillies history. He had the worst 2-outing stretch in the history of baseball combined, and this season the same thing has happened, where last year, if those 2 games don't happen, even just one of those games happen, maybe the lesser of the 2, where the one game where he allowed 10 runs, the lesser of the 2, he would have had himself probably in the top 8 of the Cy Young voting. But this season, it's just every time that he's gotten himself in a little bit of trouble, he's just been getting completely smacked. And I just brought up Dave Dombrowski's name because they not only extended Rob Thompson, but they also extended Dave Dombrowski with them. Ranger Suarez just pitched a scoreless 8 or 9 outing and an extra inning 1-0 victory for the worst team in baseball. So
and they gave Luzardo the same exact contract that the Red Sox gave Ranger Suarez. So the Phillies should have just given that contract
at the same
Ranger.
age, and it comes down to Rangers one of the best fielding pitchers in the entire league, if not the best fielding pitcher in the entire league. He's just like literally like it's almost like the ball like turns into a basketball and just like dribbles to him, and he's got like Velcro in his mitt and some of the plays that he makes. Obviously, he's never going to touch the velocity that Jesus Luzardo has. He's never going to touch the high-end stuff that Jesus Luzardo has. There's always those guys just have that stuff.
He's just a great he's a great contact
yes,
pitcher.
he just has the stuff where he gets in trouble and he'll give up 5 runs sometimes, but then he also can get himself out of like a bases loaded 1-out situation. Jesus Luzardo, you better start running to your local sports betting book and seeing what the over is and smack it, because the second people get on base with Jesus Luzardo, everything just completely falls apart.
And speaking of Joe Blanton, that was always Blanton's issue.
Do we keep getting upset? I mean, it's the same thing over and over. But of all the guys, of the Ben Simmons, of the Tobias Harris, Carson Wentz, all these guys that have upset us, that we've put all the blame to, now it's kind of shifting towards Alec Boehm and Brandon Marsh.
Mickey Moniak.
I mean, Mickey Moniak's obviously having a better season in Colorado. It's a little easier of a park sometimes to hit. That's our reference. I have a new segment for Colorado sports, too, that we have to add in here for the podcast to show some love to Recliner Media. But where I'm going, Taijuan Walker is the worst of all those guys. And all that hate is literally 100%
Taijuan Walker needs to go. And I'm done waiting for Wheeler to get back from his minor league stint to replace him in the rotation. No, he needs to go now.
Why are we not like a bullpen game?
I would take a bullpen game over that. I would call up someone else in the minors
without him being involved in the bullpen game to give you 2 or 3. Like there's not
who's our top restriction. I mean, is Gage Wood looking good in the minors so far?
Ranked in the top 5. They just brought up a guy that's not
like, I'd rather, dude, even how,
maybe last season would have went a little bit different if they took a page out of the Flyers playbook.
Dude, Gage Wood has 3 starts and a .79 ERA. He's only in single A, so yeah, it's too early to bring up.
We're gonna show some love to the Flyers now, because we have to start talking about the Flyers a little bit. Obviously,
well, I do have one final question.
I gotta tie this in together.
Okay.
So if the Phillies would have taken a page out of the Flyers book, Martone scored that goal last night in his 10th career NHL game in the playoffs.
And the first
Gage Wood was eligible to be brought up to the majors last season. What if they would have brought him up for a little just pitching edge in the playoffs?
Pitching wasn't the issue in the playoffs, but I do see what you're getting at. And we will get back into the Flyers in a moment. But my final question regarding Phillies baseball: are the Phillies going to miss the playoffs this year?
No, I think they're going to string it together, because I think they're always like actively trying to upgrade the roster. I'm not really too concerned about Adolis Garcia. I really do think they should.
No, I think he'll pour it on eventually.
I love his defense too. His arm is ridiculous.
His arm is crazy.
They need a backup catcher.
Yeah.
At least by the trade deadline. By the offseason.
Get rid of Bone at the deadline.
I think he has a little bit more value than Stott, just because his
he's got a little more value, and you have options to replace him currently.
Like if I'm
I think it's the easier choice to trade him over.
What if they just go out and do it now, even though it's his second stint in
Cincinnati?
Would. No, listen, they go out and do it now. It was his second stint in Cincinnati already. Eugenio Suarez, power bat, pop. They need that. The Reds have one of the lowest batting averages. Like literally, I think the Reds right now are sitting with like less than 70 hits on the season. You go get a guy that's a right-hand bat to replace your power bat, and that might be like the.
And then you finally have somebody you can put in the cleanup spot.
And he was a guy that he's not on like a crazy contract. Also, there was rumors that they could have added him at the trade deadline. This is something that you could have done last season, even though when he got traded, he wasn't the same player that he exactly was before he got traded in season. But like that's one of those type of options. But they need to figure out either Boehm or Stott has to go by the trade deadline. Both have to be off the team by then. Aiden Miller, hopefully, that's the progression point right there. You get Aiden Miller. Now you have Aiden Miller, Justin Crawford. I don't know. I've talked about this so many times, and this was when he was in the leadoff spot, but like half of Kyle Schwarber's hits are home runs. When he doesn't hit home runs, he's just not good at baseball. I mean, it's just a clear fact.
Yeah, but he hits a lot of home runs.
He hits a lot of home runs. He's just not a two. Like, no other team in the league has a two-hole hitter that bats that low of an average, regardless of how poppy they are.
But he also gets on base a lot.
Yeah, but he's not a good base runner. We've had this argument so many times. You've said
but
so many times.
it's still a run that can
just
come
put him
out
in the
of
4-hole. Just put him in the 4-hole.
No, I mean, listen,
RBI.
I have nothing against putting him in the 4-hole. Don't get me wrong, but
I would feel good about Justin Crawford in the leadoff spot. Trey Turner, Bryce Harper. I don't care about the
I like
lefty
Crawford
stuff.
at 9, man. I like Crawford.
I like him
at
getting
9.
on base and stuff, but there needs to be like a balance in the lineup.
I just need him to start every day.
Because I think Adolis Garcia, his best work can be done probably in the 5-hole, and I think he would be one of the best 5-hole
To me,
hitters in
he's
all
like a
of baseball.
prototypical 5-hole hitter.
That's what I see him as too. I think he it's not like the most consistent power, but he has enough to get it out. He's like pretty much what the early stages of Nick Castellanos, exactly what he was providing for the Phillies until they started trying to make him the 4-hole hitter because Alec Boone just can't handle that responsibility.
Yeah, they can't nothing is working with Boone. They need to just move on from him.
They need a backup catcher. They need a backup catcher. You need a third base or an infielder just for because Eugenio Suarez would be perfect too. Get him on that contract. You're not like tied to him, like completely committed for the future to have the Aiden Miller progression when he's ready to go, and you could still like DH. You have different options with Eugenio Suarez, and it wouldn't just be like something that's keeping you in the way as opposed to like Alec Boehm, who's like still at a realm of a young age that you'd be like, oh, I have to pick between Aiden Miller or Alec Boehm or Bryson Stott and Aiden Miller. You know what I mean? So I feel like that would be a good trade. A guy like that, not exactly him. Maybe that is the trade they make, but that's the type of trade I would make if I'm getting rid of Alec Boehm.
Yeah, but anyway, moving on now. We're both rocking the 76ers. Now, we're not just both rocking the 76ers. We're rocking the 76ers throwbacks, which does feel a bit more appropriate because the Sixers announced they're going to be wearing the throwbacks for every home game in the playoffs, which I think honestly, they should do it just for every game because if you remember during the Iverson era, the black jerseys, that was their away jersey. So honestly, I would just rock this every game if I'm the Sixers.
My favorite jersey is that, but the blue alternate one.
The blue alternate is tough. But anyway, coming up at 1 o'clock today, we have Game 1, Sixers versus Celtics. Zach, how are you feeling?
I mean, the first thing that's going to come out of my mouth is going to be about a different team, but it shows the hope. The greatest player of all time last night went into the series with a plus 400 underdog in LeBron James. No one thought they had a chance without Luka and Austin Reeves. And Kevin Durant gets ruled out right before the tip. And the Lakers, LeBron ended up having like 8 assists. But I say that to say, no one thought the Lakers had a chance in that series, and they were the higher seed. And the Sixers, without Joel Embiid, I don't know if you've seen my fantastic or fascinating Philadelphia Sports Stat of the Day series I've been doing on sports media recently, but the last time the Sixers had a top lottery pick make a playoff debut was actually Markelle Fultz and Ben Simmons in the same season, and that was without Joel Embiid, and they won that game, and Ben Simmons went for a huge performance, almost a triple-double. So I say that to say, even with the Celtics, we have to show love. I mean, people in Philadelphia sports, as a Philadelphia sports fan and a Philadelphia sports podcast, I don't think it was emphasized enough how brutal watching the Boston Celtics win the championship was. And in the fashion that they did, kind of just cruising through the league. Yeah. And they've been the top team pretty much in the East for how many years now? Whether they were just couldn't get past LeBron when he was in Cleveland, but the valuable experience between Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum and what they have accumulated over those past seasons. Jason Tatum's coming back from injury, but I say that to say, if the Sixers want to have a chance in this series, Paul George has to live up to that contract and torture Jason Tatum on defense coming off that Achilles injury.
Yeah, no, I think, well, here's the thing. I think I completely agree with you. I think that's a big key to this series is Paul George defending Jason Tatum. But then you also...
No, I'm talking about Paul George torching Jason Tatum, a lack of mobility on the defensive side of the ball coming off the injury, because a lot of people...
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
I watched the NBA.
But what I was going to say was, Because what I was going to say was, you need to play good defense on Tatum, but then the issue is you also have Jaylen Brown to worry about.
Yeah, he was an MVP candidate.
Yeah, so it's going to be a really, really tough series.
But let's break down the matchups, because one guy that I actually think, like, Jason Tatum's Jason Tatum. As much as I try to I don't think Jason Tatum, even when he's completely healthy, is a top 5 player. I truly do not believe that. I actually think he's just in the fringe of top 10 players. I can name a lot of guys I'd rather have. But I also have to admit he is a great player. And when he gets going like he did in Game 7 a couple years ago, when we should have won that series with James Harden, we had the closeout game in Game 6. Game 7, he was cooking us. He was absolutely terrorizing us in that game. So he has the ability to do that. But him coming off that injury, no one really expected him to be in this moment and be in this spot. We know the Celtics are still dangerous. He isn't the same cog. I mean, they talked about breaking up Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown for how many years when he couldn't get past the Cleveland Cavs until LeBron moved to the West, and then he was fighting with the Heat and some of those situations and everything that happened with that. But they talked about breaking this up. They finally got through and made it past and won the championship. They have a really crazy-ass head coach in Joe Mazzulla who, if these two teams on court, the 10 players are fighting whoever's on court, he's probably the next person, whether it's the crowd or that's not a player, that's going to be in the mix of probably like some physicality. Like, that dude is a psychopath. But the Sixers, this is Sixers Celtics. This is Flyers. This is Flyers Penguins.
No, it's not, and I'll tell you why it's not. Because the Flyers did something last night that the Sixers, I doubt will do, which was they took Game 1 in Pittsburgh. This is a series that I think the Flyers are going to win. Meanwhile, the Sixers are up against a team that they haven't beaten in the playoffs since the 1980s. This is just...
What happened last time they played in Boston, Game 1?
Did we take Game 1 last time in Boston?
Didn't Harden... It wasn't that the Harden...
But that was a good Sixers team with Joel Embiid on the court. Or no, wait, no. Did Joel Embiid miss the beginning of that series? Yeah, he did. That's right. Yeah, no. Okay.
What happened at the beginning of this season when Joel Embiid didn't play? Jason Tatum didn't play too, but Joel Embiid didn't play. Dude never played a minute in the NBA and drops 34. Tyrese Maxey, what? He was either 39 or 41. Yeah. If the Sixers play downhill and Paul George can start getting downhill himself...
I think Paul George is the biggest key to the series.
But if the Sixers can get downhill, Nikola Vucevic can get... Former Sixers legend Nikola Vucevic, who was drafted by the Sixers...
Yeah, played his first
season. Can get torched.
Here.
He can get torched. They don't have Kristaps back there, who Kristaps isn't the... Like, he... sometimes when he shows up a little bit, he can play a little bit of defense. Not a great rebounder, but that Queta dude that they have, Neemias Queta, he's been killing us all regular season. He's actually been, and they have Sam Hauser off the bench that can hit like 8 threes or whatever. I'm not a big Peyton Pritchard guy. I don't really. He won 6th Man of the Year a couple years ago. Smaller guard off the bench. I think I really like where the Sixers are actually standing at matchup when you look at it on paper, but they have a lot of talent.
They have a horrible, horrible track record against the Celtics. That's just the main thing.
Every team's different, though. They don't have... There's not... How many... I'm not just going to sit here and try to act like the way I'm sounding, the Sixers are going to win 4-2 in this series. Even though I would not think it's crazy if they did win the series. But what I will say is, how many lottery picks are mature enough to come into the league at age 20 and go get you 11 rebounds in a play-in game and be locked in?
When I looked at the box score after that game and I saw Edgecombe had 11 rebounds.
We talked about him. That was like when we started turning the path when he finally was the pick after we got off the Ace Bailey wagon. We talked about him being a good rebounding guard.
Yeah, well, that actually is something I looked at very recently, right? Because as you remember, originally I wanted Ace Bailey because, like I've been saying this whole time, the Sixers need size and rebounding outside of the center position. And Ace Bailey only averaged, 4.3 rebounds on the season for the Utah
their
Jazz.
Lineup was kind of like
I think if I'm not mistaken, if my memory serves me correct, I think Ace Bailey in more minutes than No. I was comparing Ace Bailey and Dominic Barlow in terms of rebound production. Ace Bailey, in more minutes than Dominic Barlow, I think had 4.7 rebounds per game. Dominic Barlow had 4.3, with Ace Bailey getting a lot more minutes. So per 36 minutes, Dominic Barlow is actually rebounding the basketball more than Ace Bailey. And you also do have VJ Edgecombe, who is a good rebounding guard. So the whole reason I wanted Ace Bailey, because I wanted a true power forward, because I wanted rebounding. But when you look at Dominic Barlow and VJ Edgecombe, they're actually better off in terms of rebounding than had they gotten Ace Bailey. And of course,
but that leads me right into, with that being said, how much of Dominic Barlow are we actually going to see?
Not a lot. Here are my two
because
biggest keys.
Adem Bona is not just getting posted by Philadelphia Sixers fan pages. When you look at like these like, not like saying that Slam Basketball posted, but like those type of pages that like post like big, like have a big following between like NBA, college basketball, and high school basketball, and all that type of content. Like people are like really fascinated by his defense. Like people think his defense is ridiculous, and dude, his athleticism, the balance between him and Drummond, and being able to play the 4 and the 5, and then Drummond just being able to anchor down the 5. I mean, I love that balance. And Andre Drummond, that was another thing, specifically with Nikola Vucevic. If it comes down to a rebounding battle,
in the playing game,
if it can come back,
Andre Drummond looked close to prime Drummond in that playing game.
In 2026, I know not everybody is always constantly looking at the sports betting lines like I am, but in 2026, do you think you would ever see 10 rebounds from Andre Drummond having the same odds as him to have a 3-pointer made in a game? Plus 108 both ways.
He hit 2.
So if you want a parlay for today, that's the Paisan Sports parlay of the day. Is Andre Drummond 3 made and Andre Drummond 10 rebounds. They're both plus 108. I put that on my podcast.
That is a good bet. I might tail that before the game starts. But my two biggest keys for this series, one is Paul George. If Paul George can play like the Paul George we've been seeing post 25 game suspension, that gives them a much better chance. I think he's a huge key, because Tyrese Maxey is going to average 30 this series, in my opinion at least. So Paul George is a huge key to this series. The other huge key, it's something that out of Nick Nurse, I was so pleasantly surprised with in the play-in game. Those rotations were perfect.
Well, that's playoff baseball. That's what I was going to talk about. Is like what are we going to see? Because I don't think
that is the exact what they did. That exact rotation is what they need to do. Only 3 guys off the bench, right? Who was it? It was Dominic Barlow, Andre Drummond, and Quentin Grimes. VJ and Maxey both played 42 minutes. That is what I want to see every single game in the playoffs. If they can continue to roll out that exact rotation and Paul George plays like the Paul George we've been seeing, and Bona and Drummond look good, then I actually might give the Sixers a chance in this series.
Give me 5 Kyle Lowry minutes and 3 fouls taken and him just decking Peyton Pritchard. Peyton Pritchard checks in, he checks in, and he just literally smacks him every time.
I don't hate that either.
That's what
I don't think I would take those minutes away from Q Dot.
No, I'll just add him as a 9th guy and just throw him in there just as an on-ball defender to just be annoying as shit and continue his legacy. He has championship experience. Yeah. And if there's one thing, I'm not going to... Like, back in the day, Kyle Lowry was dropping 20 for years on end. Like, the all-star top Toronto Raptors Kyle Lowry, he's not scoring any points and he can't be efficient on offense. Maybe a little bit as a playmaker, but he could... Maybe we could see him for 2 to 3 minutes to literally go out there and just give the edge because like... The tone gets set. Like, I don't care if it's 40-year-old Kyle Lowry that, like, it's game time when Kyle Lowry's coming into the game. Like, It sounds stupid and it sounds like I'm just trying to, play into the, a fan favorite and everything. But, like, if this is the last hurrah for Kyle Lowry and he can get up for a playoff game and give you 5 minutes in a random game of, like, game 3 where you just, like, feel like you don't have the physical edge and he just needs to go out there and set the tone and just, reach in the cookie jar, get some fouls and just, make things physical, like, I would do that. Yeah. Especially if they're lacking an edge. Like, if you come to game 3, it's in Philly, you lost 2 in Boston, and you come back and you're starting to get, like, you're down 12 early, and Kyle Lowry checks in Philly when our defense is looking bad, and he starts getting physical and he gets a steal. What do you think the crowd, and they start going on a run?
Yeah, listen, here's the thing, too. and this is going to sound stupid, but sometimes, man, sometimes it's the case, in my opinion, is the decision to wear the throwback jerseys at home. I think it adds a different aura, a different energy into the building. You know, it's nostalgia for all the fans in the seats.
Who's the first player you think of? Don't say Allen Iverson.
Outside of AI?
Yeah, I got one guy in my mind.
Iggy.
$5.
Iggy. That's the second
Well,
guy
I
I
mean,
think of.
obviously, but like to me, it's like when I see that jersey, I'm thinking about Samuel Dallenberg blocking shots in the middle of the paint.
So
I'm thinking about that era. I'm thinking about John Salmons running around getting rebounds.
Salmons. No, dude, fuck
I'm
John
thinking
Salmons.
about Rodney Carney, 6'8".
That guy, I don't remember.
Rodney Carney. That was like
Willie Green was my dude. Willie Green.
He just got fired by the. He was the Pelicans coach and got fired.
Who's another random Sixer from? Dude, people forget. People forget. Matt Barnes was a 76er.
Yeah, it was like they had a stint. The Sixers had a stint, and when they were trying to get help for AI, where
what about Matt Geiger?
I think it was the 2003 or 4 roster where they had 3 or 4 number 1 overall picks of the past decade on the same roster with Allen Iverson trying to figure out how they were going to help him out. But that was kind of the era of like the middle.
Kevin Ollie.
That Glenn Robinson.
Jermaine Jones.
Glenn Robinson. Remember that Lou Williams? Wasn't that versus Lou Will on Easter? Was that Easter? Williams hit the 3 versus the Celtics to win the playoff series? Or was that versus the Heat?
I mean, we never won a playoff series against the Celtics.
No, win the playoff game.
Oh. I don't know. I don't remember Lou Will 3.
Lou Williams was always one of my all-time favorites.
I was a big Drew Holiday guy before they traded him. I can't believe he's still having a good career, man. He's killing it.
I gotta find exactly which game. Was it that? I think that was like the Evan Turner Sixers.
Yeah.
That won that
Yeah, are you talking about this series in 2012 that went to 7 games?
I'm trying to find
because that was the era of Drew Holiday, Lou Will, Evan Turner, Thad Young, Elton Brand.
I think it's this game right here. Is it this game? I gotta find, let's see, going to the literal play-by-play here to get this accurate information.
I will say one thing while you look at that is...
Also, I was at the Marco Bellinelli game-winning, or the game-tying shot from Marco Bellinelli back in the day. That was a crazy one.
They went on to lose that game, which sucked. But yeah,
that's
that was
a funny era of
3-7
Sixers basketball to like
OT.
always remind yourself with, because we had like the guys that we were so invested in, and just the cycle of rotation of role players that we were cycling through was just insane. And you know how we were talking about the Portland Trailblazers last podcast, I think, and you were asking me Philadelphia Sixers legends that were holding it down? I missed somebody.
Who?
Who did I miss?
I don't know.
Legend. They tried to make this guy the guy in Philly, not like the main guy, but they tried to make this work with this guy for so long until it just didn't. He just couldn't progress.
What time period are we looking at?
Recent, not
recent.
Not this like exact era, like not Tyrese Maxey necessarily.
Thybulle?
But Joel Embiid. Yeah, Matisse Thybulle's on the.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he's over there. Matisse.
JJ Redick's now is a coach in the league, and he was a fixture for the Sixers' playoff success, like, or the lack thereof. It. Not saying like it was his direct result, but like
remember
outside
Mike
of
Scott. I liked Mike Scott.
There was a time in Sixers basketball where the Lakers current coach, where if Joel Embiid's not scoring and Ben Simmons isn't getting downhill, it was just running pin downs for him to score the entire time. And JJ Redick, that was literally what it was. But I mean, the Celtics, we hate them. Obviously,
despise them.
This is pretty much like Cowboys Eagles, but the Celtics just whoop our ass all the time. So it's
that's what I mean.
That's what
we just got our ass beat.
And usually you would think that like getting our ass whooped by the same team kind of fuels the rivalry to even be stronger, like up there with Cowboys Eagles, but it just like tones it down a tad bit because I hate the Celtics as much as I hate the Cowboys, but like I can't deny the fact they whoop our ass every time, and it's just on paper, and everybody knows it. So it's like I'm not one of those fans that's going to spew just nonsense of saying like they don't have our number because they do. We whoop the Cowboys ass, but in like these rivalries, like
the Cowboys rivalry, regular season wise, is usually 50-50. Right, usually we split with them every year. It's actually a good back and forth rivalry.
I respect it that way too.
Yeah, against the Celtics, we just got our ass beat.
And like the Braves, we have their number in the playoffs, and we've been whooping their ass. The Mets, like I feel like the overline the Mets have gotten us recently, but like what we did to them back in the day when they blew that division lead way back in the day, but kind of is
Yeah.
And we weighed a little bit more moves
and
than they
we
have.
went on to win a ring.
That's what I'm saying. It actually like turned into something.
Yeah.
Like I mean, we're both not the biggest Flyers guys, but. I mean, I probably watch the Flyers maybe once a week at least. My dad is a huge Flyers and just hockey guy in general, but Flyers Penguins is definitely in Philadelphia sports. Flyers Penguins is up
before we talk just a little bit about the Flyers.
I'm just talking in Philadelphia sports and just
I know, but I feel
in
like
honor of the Celtics Penguins. How would you want it to be if you had your ideal Philadelphia sports series in the playoffs? Give me the exact scenario, as in. The Sixers-Celtics Eastern Conference Finals Game 7. The Cowboys versus the Eagles for the which we saw. I think that's how they got to the 19th.
I'm trying to understand. Or the question you're asking me is that out of all four sports, if you could pick your ideal rivalry matchup, what would it be?
Yes.
I honestly,
you can
go. Hold on. At this point. Because if this were to happen, in my opinion, you could consider it a rivalry, very similar to how, despite being in separate conferences,
I was just going to cut you off to say that interconference.
Because, the Cavs and the Warriors were a rivalry for a while. So if the Eagles were to meet the Chiefs in the Super Bowl one more time, the end of the trilogy. That at that point you would definitely consider it a rivalry. That would be my ideal matchup. One more time, let's run it back a third time in the Super Bowl. Eagles Chiefs. That's my answer.
I mean, the Chiefs have 2 first-round picks too. Before we talk about football, just remember that because I wanted to actually talk about what the NFL draft landscape's looking like. But real quickly, if we had to put it on paper and stamp it, how are we feeling about this exact series? Give me the honest truth. What do you think is going to happen with the Sixers? Do you think how many games can they bring the Celtics to?
Listen. If I were to give you, an honest prediction on how I think the series is going to play out, I would say Boston takes the first 2. Then we go home for Game 3. We take that game. We lose.
So now you have to put a percentage on how, if you're going to paint the scenario, hold on. If you're going to paint the exact scenario I just painted of Kyle Lowry seeing time in a playoff game, put the percentage on that happening because you just said they're going to lose 2, like I said was going to happen to paint the scenario where we could see Kyle Lowry.
Was the percentage chance we see Kyle Lowry Game 3?
If they lose the first 2 games, like I said, and you were just going at
40% chance.
You think?
I'll give it 40% chance. But yeah, I think we're going to lose the first 2, take Game 3 in Philly, lose Game 4, then steal a game in Boston, Game 5, make it a 3-2 series, and then Boston finishes us off, and we lose the series in 6. That's my honest prediction. I don't give us much of a chance of actually miraculously winning the series. I say miraculously because I think something miraculous would need to happen for us to actually win the series. But in terms of, how it would play out for us to win the series, I could see this happening. I don't think there's a good probability it happens. I think it's a very small probability it happens, but I think it could happen. We steal Game 1 in Boston. Boston takes Game 2. We return home for Game 3. Win that game off of just the momentum of taking a game in Boston. Then Embiid returns, and then it becomes a legit series that we win in 7 games. I think there's a small probability it shakes out that way.
At the season,
and I'm holding on to some small hope that it does. But
I won't go that far, but I will say if the season is even and Joel Embiid returns, my money would go on the Sixers.
I don't
Because it's not only like that. Because I think the Celtics had the same amount. I think the Celtics are just as good at had the same high level talent that the Sixers have, and might even be better. But Joel Embiid, they don't have a guy that can stop Joel Embiid. They don't have two guys that can stop Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Paul George might be able to get in the way of one. VJ's going to have some size issues, but he's going to have some size issues, but he can hold his own a little bit. Another crazy thing I'll throw out here and say, Adem Bona will be involved in a game-winning play that will seal a victory for the Sixers.
That's
whether
a hot
it's
take. That's a crazy
pin-down
take.
block
That's a crazy take.
at the
I think
end.
you're just stoked on Bona.
Or you will see one of the craziest Aaron Gordon-like game-winning shots from Adem Bona, where there's 0.7 seconds on the clock, and Tyrese Maxey inbounds the ball at the rim because the alley-oop is the only shot that they have time for, with around 0.5 seconds left, and Adem Bona literally dips his arm, honey dips inside the rim, and literally gives the fingertip around.
Listen, I'm going to say one thing. The likeliest Sixer to have a game winner this series, in my opinion, is VJ Edgecombe. A guy
you know what sparked me to say that crazy stuff about Adem Bona?
What?
You forgot about Mike Scott's game winner in Brooklyn.
Well, listen, but here's what I will say. So I think if anybody's going to hit a game winner, it's going to be Edgecombe, because he's a guy who, in my opinion, is simply built for the moment. Unlike a guy who a lot of people had higher than him in terms of rookies, being Con Knipple. The lights were too bright for him, but that's a different topic.
That's not LaMelo, bro.
That's a different topic. But I will say, if Bona hits a game winner, I'll tell you how it's going to play out. Tyrese Maxey is going to put up a very long-range, deep three to try and win it. And then Bona put back dunk for the win.
That's pretty much the same thing I'm talking about. Is they don't?
Yeah, but you said alley-oop.
Dude, we've seen some crazy.
But I could see Bona with a put.
Also, Mike Scott hit that game-winning three in the playoffs on 420, so you know he was stoned. You know he was smoking in the locker room at halftime. He went out there stoned, and he was locked in.
Who was it recently? I forget if it was NBA or NFL that admitted they usually smoke before each game.
Well, a lot of people have said it. LeBron even said it way back in the day. Randy Moss was talking about it, but Calvin Johnson, Megatron, said that he smokes before every game, and he was probably the most
Was it
random.
Calvin Johnson? I feel like
he's probably the most
did.
random person that I would ever assume to be doing that. But back in the day, they used to smoke cigarettes in the locker room during the Super Bowl.
Well, in baseball, they would be smoking cigarettes in the dugout.
The Zyn epidemic too. I just saw an MMA women's fighter have a Zyn fall out. I thought it was her tooth. When they took her mouth, it was a Zyn.
That's funny. During an MMA fight is crazy.
I think if you're getting rocked, you're already getting lightheaded from the damage that you're taking to your cranium, and then you're on top. I mean, I guess a person like that's literally willing to do it. There's also Thai fighters that literally will fight with a toothpick in their mouth. So
in Star Wars.
No, the Thailand fighters, but yeah.
Anyway,
but that's pretty dangerous as well.
Anyway, moving on now. What?
It's time for the meatball of the week, and I'm going to be holding.
All right, we'll do it now. I was going to do Flyers and then meatball, but
we got to transition to some NFL draft talk here, and then we'll
end
with
it.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
right.
Meatball of the week. We're going to spin this a little bit. We're actually going to give credit to somebody that you've put down in the past. Go through the catalog of names. Who do you believe? Who have you been picking on? There's
Doc
a lot
Rivers.
of people that you refer to a lot.
Let's
pick the Mount Rushmore of Dante's people that he picks on. And we are a Colorado-based podcast, so that might spark one of the names that's in your head.
Okay, well, I mean, my first instinct is Doc Rivers. Now that you're bringing up Colorado, I'm going to say Nikola Jokic.
Okay, we got two.
But that's not a guy I pick on because I think he sucks. It's just a guy that I hate. A guy I think sucks is Doc Rivers. So Doc,
who got fired literally an hour.
Dude, he is still holding on to that one ring.
You haven't named this person yet.
All right, so Doc Rivers, Nikola Jokic, Taiwan Walker. I mean, that's.
I don't know if I would.
Very
that doesn't
vocal
really
against.
trigger me to put him on the Mount Rushmore for you.
Well, who are you thinking of?
This is a person that's been involved in this segment that could sponsor this segment if you want.
Oh, the Giants GM.
Yeah. So we're gonna give the Giants GM claim. I just turned 20.
Wait, hold on. Are you making him the meatball of the week?
No.
Okay, because you have gotten upset with me for continuing to make
I
it.
just said I'm going to give him credit, and then I'm going to flip it back to see
Credit?
if we should give him credit.
That was a good trade last night. That was a good
I just
trade.
turned 29 years old. You turned 29 in a couple months, I believe.
Fuck you. Yeah, I do.
Dexter Lawrence turns 29 in November. Are you trading the 10th overall pick in the NFL draft in less than a week for Dexter Lawrence?
Listen, here's what I think about that. But to be clear, who is the meatball?
The Bengals GM.
Okay.
That made that trade.
All right. I mean, to me, I don't think it's as bad of a trade for the Bengals as some people are making it out to be. You look at the fact that the Bengals have been desperately needing defense for quite a while now. Dexter Lawrence is a great defender. Now, is he 29 and you gave up the 10th overall pick? Yes. But in the NFL draft, there's never a guarantee the 10th overall pick is going to be a great player. You know Dexter Lawrence is a great player. This is a team that, if it has a great defense, is ready to win now. The offense is there. So to go out and get a guy who's going to make an immediate impact on defense, I actually don't hate it for the Bengals.
You know what's awesome, too?
What?
They could have just kept Trey Hendrickson on the roster.
That is a good point, yeah.
And they not only made that trade, they also signed him to the extension that they didn't give Trey Hendrickson. Crazy part, Dante, who did Trey Hendrickson sign with? The team they're going to not beat out for the division in the AFC North in the Baltimore Ravens.
Mm-hmm.
So you spend the 10th overall pick on that when, they already had issues with it. Maybe the Shamar Stewart situation, it was the meatball of our week. I mean, the Bengals actually this isn't the first appearance of the Bengals being involved in the meatball of the week because Shamar Stewart and his situation with the first round controversy last season when he didn't want to sign that contract forever. They finally got him onto the roster. Also, where I'm going with this too is we give credit to Joe Shane for making this trade. What have the Giants done historically in the Super Bowl era in 1966, that being and on, with 2 first-round draft picks? Because the Giants actually have had the most top 10 draft picks in the first round in the past decade of football. And they've had numerous instances with 2 first-round picks that didn't work out. One of them being Dexter Lawrence in the same draft class with Daniel Jones that they took at 6, with Dexter Lawrence at 17, and then trade him to get the 10th overall pick back, which is a good trade. They now hold the 5th and 10th pick. A couple years back, they have Evan Neal and Kayvon Thibodeau as top 7 picks, both of them 5 and 7. Evan Neal sucks. Kayvon Thibodeau, they had to trade for Brian Burns to, combat him just being not living up to the 5th overall hype. They have Abdul Carter, who they just drafted, and Abdul Carter puts me in another instance of the Giants having 2 first-round picks in 1 draft class with Jackson Dart, which I do like that draft class. Well, the only other successful draft class that they had with 2 first-round picks, which Abdul Carter and Jackson Dart, that is the verdict is, the jury's not out on that yet because we don't know exactly what they're going to turn into, but I do like that on paper, was Carl Banks, legendary linebacker back in the day, and they drafted an offensive lineman that went on to win a Pro Bowl, and they ended up winning them a Super Bowl back in the day. So that's the only time it's worked out for the Giants with 2 first-round picks in the same draft.
Here's the thing. The Giants with 2 first-round draft picks, I mean, you bring up a good point. There is a very good...
Real quickly, DeAndre Baker was also involved. They had 3 first-round draft picks. The third
let me get to my thing here. Let me get to my thing here. You bring up a good point. There's a very good chance that the Giants giant this. By the way, I think the Giants are kind of... when you look at New York teams, I think the Giants are like the Mets of the NFL 100%. In terms of they always find a way to screw it up.
The team that rhymes with that name is the
Nets.
No, the Jets are like...
And the Jets.
Jets are in top 4 American...
Well, the Jets are just misery.
Where would you rank real quickly, Jets are the bottom of the totem pole of all 4 major sports? Like, we're talking probably like a top 5, top 10 historically bad team in all those.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. But anyway, there's a very good chance the Giants mess this up. However, when you look at what this Giants team did when they were healthy, I mean, as brief as it was, right, with Jackson Dart and Cam Scadaboo and Malik Neighbors and, those guys on offense, that offense was looking good, man. And you also got Abdul Carter on defense. If they don't mess this up, and they get two immediate impact players in the first round, this Giants team can actually be legit this upcoming season, in my opinion.
I didn't think you were going to go there because I was going to go there, and I actually do believe in them. And if they went the route of getting, like, Jeremiah Love with one of the picks with Cam Scadaboo, and then they have Malik Neighbors and Jackson Dart, they have Tyler Linderbaum, who they gave the contract to in the offseason. So, they're anchoring all different types of positions to, reinforce this. And this isn't like a traditional, like, where they try to get a guy in, a young guy with a young quarterback. Like, they're getting a really established, productive coach, and they're trying to turn things around really quickly. And they weren't really messing around with the Dexter Lawrence situation at all. Like, once he wanted out, we heard about it a little bit. I think the Browns offered, like, a high second-round pick for him. And they're like, nah, we want more. And then they end up with the 10th overall pick. So that's pretty crazy. Especially when you come back in and trade back in to the first round to get Jackson Dart last year. And then to be able to have the 5th and 10th overall pick the next season. Like, you don't really see that too often for a team where their defense was already pretty decent. I mean, they have good pass rush. It's obviously, going to turn down a little bit. We'll see.
What was funny is going into last season, I thought the defense was going to be the strong suit of the Giants. When you look at the defense they had on paper going into last season, all the pass rushers they had with, Dexter Lawrence and Abdul Carter and the other guys they had on the D line, I thought the defense was legitimately going to be the strong suit, and then the offense showed us flashes while they were healthy, and now you have a draft to possibly build on that defense. Granted, the 10th pick you're just hoping is just going to replace the guy you just traded.
Well, I was going to say, I don't think that they make that trade without having a guy like Abdul Carter on the team, even though...
it's a good point.
But I don't think they make that trade if they don't have Abdul Carter on the team. But now they're just they got to figure out what they're doing with Kayvon Thibodeau. We'll see if they try to replace there's no defensive tackle that's worthy of one of those picks to replace Dexter Lawrence right away. So they're probably going to have to do it in a different type, in a different spot. But I think with like New York teams, they're not the only New York team that has 2 first-round picks. And in the top 16 of the draft, and the Jets also do too. And they like to go out and just get the flashiest, sexiest players that they can possibly get. So I think if they add my Notre Dame guy and Jeremiah Love, and they balance him out with Cam Scadaboo, who's really talented, but probably will age not that well because of the play style. But that helps you protect your quarterback. Add another element to the offense. And I was actually thinking today, as we veer off into Eagles talk, I think it's kind of underrated if Jeremiah Love, I know I'm a Notre Dame guy, not just trying to be biased, but if Jeremiah Love starts slipping just running back positional value-wise, imagine an Eagles offense that has Saquon Barkley with a receiving back that's like that Brian Westbrook style in Jeremiah Love, and they go that because a lot of people think they need like another receiver in case A.J. Brown isn't in the mix. Dallas Goedert obviously only has 1 year left on his contract, and that situation kind of just keeps kicking the can down the street until maybe he's not an Eagle anymore. They're just giving him 1 year contracts back to back to back. But that would be an underrated way to add a playmaker to the offense. This is the number 1 overall player in the draft, and Howie, when he saw Jalen Carter back in the day slipping a little bit at a position that he historically loves and adds to, I know they're not the biggest on going out and, adding to running. I mean, when was the last time they spent a first-round pick on a running back? You know what I mean?
Well, here's what I will say about that. I don't want them to go running back in the first round. Like I mentioned last week, I want to go first-round safety and edge rusher, not in that order, any possible order. Well, there's 2 possible orders, but you get what I mean. But if they were,
safety's like the running back of defense.
But if they were to grab a receiving back at running back in the first round, then I think when you look at Saquon's age, when you look at his dip in production last year, right, it becomes very reasonable to propose the idea of having a three-headed monster once again, like what you were mentioning in the Brian Westbrook days when you had that three-headed monster with Brian Westbrook, Deuce Staley, and Carell Buckhalter. So now, you would do sort of a similar thing with Saquon Barkley, Tank Bigsby, and that running back you're mentioning, which honestly, that sounds like a fun idea. I'm not gonna lie. But I do really want them to go safety and edge rusher, but that sounds like a fun
Safety's the
idea.
same
I'll
thing.
give
Like
you
if
that.
you draft a safety in the first round, you're drafted. That's the defense's like way of like drafting a running back. You know what I mean? So that's kind of the situation you fall in positional value wise. But that was just one thing because a lot of people like are like really fixated on Kenyon Sadiq, the Oregon tight end, which I like him a lot too.
My buddy who actually he was on the podcast before, Sam, who's a Jets fan, that is who he really wants in the first round, interestingly enough.
For the Jets?
Yeah, that's who he
Well,
wants
they
for
had
the
like
Jets.
the 16th pick and the second pick, so we'll see what they do.
Yeah.
That could be a realm where like they would have to trade up to like the 16th pick. If I'm the Jets, I'm literally they have nothing. They have literally Garrett Wilson.
Yeah. No,
So
the Jets
I'll
are
like
nice.
Garrett Wilson, and the only other dude that's like talented on their team that they have, Brees Hall, they just franchise tagged him, just pissed him off. So he's probably just going to leave in free agency next offseason
Yeah.
when they let the leash off him.
No, the Jets
so,
are a dumpster fire.
I mean, I would just trade. I would find a team. I would pick at 2 and then trade that 16th pick and just accumulate as many picks, and I'd just start going into the well, get the best player at 2.
That's not bad. Well, imagine
this.
this. Imagine this. If you're the Jets, you have the 16th pick, right? That leaves you enough room to possibly have a trade where you trade back to late in the first round and then pick up a first round pick for next year.
Yeah, you
And
never
get
know how
two
it's going to work
first-round
out.
picks
Also, you
out of
can
that
burn
one
yourself,
first-round
or you
pick.
can like really do yourself a luxury because I mean the Rams were able to turn the latter of their first round picks from the trade with the Falcons into an already ready 2-time Super Bowl winning champion, all pro corner, and Trent McDuffie this offseason, the last like missing piece of their team. And they traded the 29th pick. But did the Browns last year when they made that trade with the Jags from 5 to 2, did they think the Jaguars were to give them like a playoff level draft pick? You know what I mean? The Jaguars made the playoffs.
Yeah.
So like that the Browns probably thought that draft pick was going to be a lot higher in this draft when they had 2 draft picks, and they're not in the situation now that the Giants find themselves in, getting that trade with Dexter Lawrence. But if we focus on the Eagles, safety, a lot of people just like the experts that like tunnel vision draft. They're not Eagles like team personnel guys, just the guys that are literally just the NFL, like the Mel Kipers of the world and the Daniel Jeremiah's. Like drafting a safety or running back or even like tight end at times is just like they'll never do it under any circumstance, which I just think is stupid. Not saying those guys like Mel Kiper is like that. He's said that, like literally stamped that before and has said that, so he is like that. But he's kind of turning the page. Like Jeremiah Love is the best player in the draft, so it's going to make things interesting where he goes because that can start a different type of run. And where does the run on tackles in the NFL draft start? Because it could start with the Chiefs at like pick 9, and that could affect what the Eagles try to do. Because another thing that the Philadelphia fan base is really caught up on is like Kenyon Sadiq or like Caden Proctor that you hear about, and like there's a chance Caden Proctor's like picked at like pick 13 or 14 if the tackles start going early. So maybe a safety is the Jeremiah Love's not falling to 23, but maybe a safety, one of their safeties of their choice. Caleb Downs probably isn't that guy, but Caleb Downs, this was a guy that had the 7th highest odds before last college football season to be the number 1 overall pick as a safety. That's how talented and good this guy is. He's played for Alabama, then transferred to Ohio State. If he starts slipping in the draft, he's not like a physical freak athletic guy. That is a position of need and somebody that will come in, and that dude could literally be a second-team All-Pro. That's how talented he is at football, just as a football player. He could be a second-team All-Pro safety for you, literally in Season 1, and that could be adding that to Tariq Woolen, Cooper DeJean, and Quinyon Mitchell. That could be deadly. So I don't get caught up on
if he has a great second year.
Dude, I don't give a shit if they draft a guard. If they traded up and drafted a guard at 10, I'd be upset in the moment. But if it's Quentin Nelson level production and he's just pancaking everybody and Jonathan Taylor's running for 1,800 yards and 20 touchdowns every year, or Saquon would be the guy that's doing that, like, am I mad at the draft pick? And I know this Cowboys don't have success, but the one thing the Cowboys do that it seems like, which kind of scares me because when I said to remember it like 15 minutes ago, what I was talking about was You added the Chiefs in the realm. You set it up perfectly. I was going to add the Chiefs into the rivalry along with the NFC East teams. Washington's picking pick 7. The Giants have 2 top 10 picks. The Cowboys have 2 first-round draft picks. And the Chiefs have 2 first-round draft picks. All the teams that the Eagles specifically compete with.
Yeah.
So this pick for the Eagles in a refresh year with some of the guys, it seems like they kind of are running a little bit stale on the talent that they have. And some people are upset. The interior of the trenches, the advantage that it seemed like we used to have isn't the same with some of the banged-up guys that we have on the interior. I really don't care what position they have. I think they just need to get the best player possible. And that's something that was interesting because Howie Roseman...
Well, that's always been Howie's strategy, honestly.
Yeah, but he's also, I believe it now when he goes out and gets Jahad Campbell. You know what I mean? Or when
Jahad Campbell, in my opinion, was an example of getting best guy available.
Yeah, but he, before linebackers, I don't care if
Sonny we had other positional needs outside of linebacker going into that draft. Linebacker was not our biggest positional need. Not by a long shot, in my opinion.
I think Campbell
was just the best available.
No, I agree with that, but like linebacker, we never invested in that position ever that high. That's what started making me believe all right, now he is truly, and his patience with getting Quinyon Mitchell and then trading up for Cooper DeJean and doubling down on that position. Now the BPA thing actually makes a lot of sense. And with that being said, I mean, that's one thing that the Cowboys always do well is they draft BPA. Is they always get the best player available at the spot, and then even when they draft the positional value and getting a running back high, I mean, you saw what it turned into, and they were scary with Zeke back in the day. So the Washington, there's a good chance Jeremiah Love, the number 1 overall player in this draft, is playing somewhere in the NFC East. And the Eagles are probably the least likely for that to happen with, but Washington's at 7. They could use a running back to help Jaden Daniels and a young quarterback.
Yeah.
The Giants at 5. And then the Cowboys, the Cowboys could use a running back too. And they have 2 first-round draft picks.
They could absolutely
And if he falls to 12, BPA, I don't think they would move out of that spot and not take Jeremiah Love. But I know they love Sonny Styles. That's a lot of the stuff that I'm hearing. But for the Eagles, the way that I say all that to say is where I'm looking at with the Eagles now is before I kind of wanted to get some glue as opposed to tape for some of these holes, or the Lane Johnsons, get some depth for a future starter for that. Now I'm kind of trending towards I just want to get the best player that I can throw onto the field right now and keep this championship window of this team open.
Here's the thing, right? So let's say the Eagles don't go positional need in first round. They go best player available, right? Now you still have a positional need at safety and at edge rusher. After the first round pick, they still have their second round pick, obviously. And they have the early first round pick from the New York Jets, right? Pick number 68. So that would be, the 4th pick in the 3rd round? So that's a very early 3rd round pick. So you can still go best player available in the 1st round and then go with those positional needs of safety and edge rusher in rounds 2 and 3. And then you still have another 3rd round pick on top of that. So they are in a position
only have 6 picks in next year's draft though.
Yeah, but you are in a position to where you can go best player available first round, positional needs round 2 and 3, and then you still have outside that you have 1, 2, 3, 4 picks later in the draft for depth, and one of those picks you expect Howie to draft a guy who's just a raw prospect who could possibly have a high ceiling. It seems like he does that once every draft, but in all actuality, knowing Howie Roseman, the current picks that they have in the draft coming up, what are the odds that they draft at all of these picks? In all likelihood, Howie's going to make so many trades throughout the draft.
I think there's 3/4 of the time. I think that's a percentage of him staying put at the stock first round pick. That's the first round pick. 25% of the time, or less than that, he actually makes where they are scheduled to draft in the first round. Mm-hmm. So we've seen it. I can go off the top of my head all the times that they trade up, even with one spot last year, which people forget they even traded up last year. They did trade up last year to get Jahad Campbell with the Chiefs.
Yeah. Howie never,
even with Brandon Graham, he was a trade up. You know what I mean? It's like all these different situations.
Cooper
Like,
DeJean.
yeah, just go down the list.
Devontae Smith. Devontae Smith was a trade back and then back up.
Yeah. I mean, the Saints situation where they were moving all around and then ended up with A.J. Brown and Jordan Davis. But let's run through the quick hits here with the NFL draft. I'm just going to give you two. You give me the opinion, and then I'll give it after of what I think of these questions I have for you. Do they draft a quarterback at any point?
I could see very late in the draft. I could see that.
Okay. I don't think they do it this year because I don't think there's a good. I don't like the quarterbacks in this draft unless it's like maybe like if Drew Aller's like there in the 4th round talent wise, maybe I'd take a gamble. Penn State guy, blah blah blah. I don't like the situation just based off of like Jalen Hurts. Like he's made the Super Bowl twice. He was involved in the exact situation of the last time that we drafted a quarterback high, and then it made all this speculation. Then you saw what it turned into. So
they won't do that again.
That would
not
be crazy.
Not with the Super Bowl MVP at quarterback. Carson Wentz was a whole different thing.
They have pretty solid running backs on the team. Drafted Will Shipley, still in the mix, good special teamer. Tank Bigsby's good. May not have that long of a future in Philly. We'll see if he's still
probably not long. I mean, this is the final year of Tank Bigsby's rookie deal, and I doubt they pay him.
They also signed Dameon Pierce, too, who's been productive for the Texans in the past. Have pretty talented running backs.
I forgot. We had a Dameon Pierce, didn't we?
Yeah. So
I forgot all about that.
So we have like 3 guys that could be in a committee, and then Will Shipley, who can give you a little change of pace and a really good special teamer. So
yeah, they're pretty.
Did they draft a running back?
Now that you lay all of that out, I'm going to say no.
But like running backs, usually there's talented guys going in the 4th and 5th round. Like that's
yeah,
where they
but
go,
I don't. I mean, I think right now this is a stacked running back room, so I doubt it.
Chances they had a wide receiver early or at any point in the draft?
High.
Early,
I wouldn't say high chance they drafted a wide receiver early. I could see it. I don't really want them to. But I think there is a high chance that they're going to, draft at least one wide receiver with these picks that they have.
Last time Dallas Goedert, or they went out and got their current starting tight end in Dallas Goedert, they had Zach Ertz, who, was coming off seasons.
Well, we talked about this last
catches.
week. We talked about this last week. Now, I mean, we've had a cycle where when Selleck was still doing his thing, we drafted Ertz. When Ertz was still doing his thing, we drafted Goddard. Now is the point where if this cycle were to continue, now's the point where they would draft another tight end high in the draft.
Then I'm going to go with a little curveball here. For their offensive line, do they have a guy on the current roster, maybe that they drafted in years past that hasn't made a name for himself, that could turn into a quality offensive lineman that could fill a gap and maybe be like the offensive side of Moro Jomo type level? As in, last year I referenced Drew Kendall. I like him, and a lot of people are high on the tackle Cam Williams. So is there a guy on the roster that could fill those holes? Miles Hinton was another Michigan tackle that I think was like a practice guy. But
Miles Hinton, I still think, has a high upside. He just needs to put it together, and it's going to be a little difficult without him being enrolled in Stoutland University anymore. None of the guys are. But I could see, they drafted 3 offensive linemen late in the draft last year that I think do have decent upside. So I could see that as a possibility, with Lane possibly continuing to miss time this upcoming year, because he's a guy that I just don't have confidence can play a full season at this point.
Okay. Defensive side of the ball. Offensive line, they have a lot of talent at the offensive line, but obviously it's kind of shrinking out a little bit, and they need some more guys that are a little bit more durable. They have talent at pass rusher too. What do they have a better chance of doing between picking a pass rusher or picking an offensive lineman in round 1? Because they have guys at both positions, but they could add to both those positions as well.
I think pass rusher is a much bigger need. I mean, you only have 2 guys right now, and the only guy, at least I'm sold on, is Jalix Hunt. I'm not fully sold on Nolan Smith. He's shown flashes. I think he can do it, but I'm not fully sold on him. I think pass rush is a big need early on in the draft, so I would much rather see them go pass rusher. But offensive lineman, looking for the heir to Lane Johnson, I would not hate that.
Okay. Also, will we see them involved in a big trade, whether it's them getting rid of a big-time player or acquiring a big-time player during the NFL draft?
I don't think so.
Back in the day, they acquired A.J. Brown. There's obviously the A.J. Brown trade rumors.
But that was a team that was young and rebuilding, and it was time to go out and get a big impact player. I don't see I don't see a big time player on the current roster they would end up trading right now. I'm not even going to entertain the nonsense we've been hearing about a certain big player possibly getting traded. That's just not happening. So I don't see them
put it out of the realm as much as I, want to.
I'm putting
be
it
realistic.
out of the realm. I'm putting it out of the realm.
I
don't see them.
Nick Foles even saying it yesterday. I'm not going to sit here and. Just
I don't see them getting rid of a big time player, and I don't really see them trading for one either. It would be really cool if they traded for a big time safety or pass rusher. But I don't see it happening. I think they're just
Myles Garrett's obviously on the block. They've been rumored to him as well. You could
Yeah, so I mean, I would say there's a better possibility of them trading for a big name like a Myles Garrett than actually getting rid of the guy that's been talked about.
You get onto the clock at 23 starts coming up. You're at pick 18. The Browns call you. They're like, "Yo, give me Nolan Smith, give me the 23rd pick, and give me the 68th pick in the draft for Myles Garrett."
Yes.
I think everybody in the world's doing that.
Yeah.
I don't think that. I think the Browns.
I'm absolutely doing that.
I think the Browns could get two first-round picks easily, especially if you get the 10th overall pick for Dexter Lawrence. Myles Garrett, he's arguably the best player in all of football.
You put Myles Garrett on that defense, this team is going back to the Super Bowl.
That would be interesting. They get somebody like that level. That's where I think it's people think that they're kind of I don't know. I see it how the paper folding a little bit. They just had
How old is Myles Garrett now?
He's 28 or 30, but Dexter Lawrence.
But that's what I mean.
Or I think he might be. He's definitely 30. He might be close to 31
at his
this year.
age. Hold on.
Yeah, but that's Dexter Lawrence is good.
Well, no, I'm saying he still has some time to dominate in the NFL. He's 30 years old. I would give him another 5 years.
Dexter Lawrence is a good player for this decade and generation of football. Myles Garrett's top 3 players in the history of his position.
Yeah.
It's
no, Myles Garrett is
33-year-old. I'm giving up a first-round pick for a 34-year-old Myles Garrett. That still can give me 12 or 13 sacks. I don't. Yeah. Why would I care? It's the thing about him is he doesn't have the craziest injury history. It's he's athletic as shit. Can 360 dunk a basketball, but he also isn't somebody that isn't skilled.
Well, let me look at his games played over recent years. Yeah, he has not missed any time at all, really. He played all 17 the past 2 years. Year before that, he played 16, 15, 17, 14. It was really just early in his career that he had some struggles with injury.
Well, it was, and I think he got suspended for the Mason Rudolph thing, too. So he definitely got suspended for that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Was,
he's coming off 23 sacks last year. So, yeah, no, I'm absolutely making that trade for Myles Garrett. I'm not even, if I'm Howie Roseman and he says that, I'm just sold. Just immediately, yes. Yep, we're doing it. I'm not discussing it with anybody first. I'm immediately pulling the trigger.
It would be crazy if, they get on the board with, that second, third-round pick, or, even, the fourth. I think it would have to be a third-round pick, though, and, they just call the Giants and Joe Schoen, yo, can we get Kayvon Thibodeau at, age 24 or 25? Because Howie, I talked about before that Jalen Phillips, he is the prototypical guy that the Philly or the Eagles are searching for in free agency. That 26, 27 is really good, top draft pick from before, but hasn't completely lived up to the production and the hype, and will play his best years in Philadelphia. That's always the Hassan Reddicks of the world. That's always the guys that the Eagles go after. So Kayvon Thibodeau still has that pedigree of being a top pick, a guy not exactly him, but even guys around the league. If some of those guys come available and maybe you can trade a later mid-round pick for them, I would be down to go all in, though. But like I said, with the paper merging, I see it as last year they kind of knew the season wasn't going to play out when things started to pick up. They just weren't having the chemistry of the Super Bowl year from the year before. And some people might think that they kind of ease off the gas a little bit just to recoup, to build a bigger, larger window for more years. I kind of see it as they made the Super Bowl twice in recent memory. It's go time, and they're going to do whatever it takes to get right back in the mix, whether it's they go out and draft a safety in the first round. If it's not on paper positional value like the thing that they should normally do. And if one of these top prospects, there's only a couple guys that I would trade up for. I probably wouldn't do it for a tackle, but if it's sexy season and they need to go out there and get like a skill position guy or something like that, like I would go out there and just add like a guy that can come in right away.
So you want someone sexy?
Yeah, that's what they call it. You got teams like
guy.
The Titans.
Get Shawn Michaels. That's a sexy boy
Titans
right
suck,
there.
and it's they got Cam Ward, and then they draft offensive linemen that are like okay every single year. You need to get a little sexier in Tennessee. You know what I mean? You need to spice things up. But team that spiced it up last night, enough for us to talk about on the podcast now. Like I said, I'll probably watch it once a week if I'm being completely honest.
This was the first game I have fully watched in probably since 2020.
Yeah, I just laugh like I really enjoyed watching the Flyers. I just think it's funny because like there was like such a time where the direction of the Flyers looked like it was going one way, and all I could ever see was Hardwood Classic, or the Stadium Series Classic, like Ghost Despair, Shane Ghost Despair jerseys, and like that was
all about Ghost.
That's been such a long era ago. But them making the playoffs, that was the first time since 2019-2020, right around the time that they were like moving on from him and adding all these guys, and now. They got a guy in like Trevor Zegras, who they traded for, that scores a goal versus the team that he moved on from, is emoting on the team at 24 years old. They got like a collection of just really good guys. They call a guy up that was literally playing college hockey a couple months ago, and the way that the tournament played out, the Flyers had a chance to pick him up and add him to the roster, and in his 10th NHL game, scores a goal in Pittsburgh versus the Flyers' arch rival in Porter Martone.
Yeah.
And the type of impact we saw.
And that goal secured my parlay. I had Flyers money line. I had Porter Martone and Travis Konechny each to pick up a point.
Yeah, Travis Konechny's been the fold. Travis Sanheim with that crazy goal that he had. I think that's what broke the 1-1 tie. And this team's just coming together. They have a backup goalie that's around our age that was a career backup that wasn't even supposed to be the starting goalie going into the season of Vladar, and he's just literally holding things down in the net. So this is a team that averaged like 25 to 27 shots on goal. And the one reason why I think they won last night was like, bro, the Pittsburgh Penguins had like 17 or 18 shots total in the entire game. They literally couldn't, and it was the physicality of the Flyers.
So now, the first two periods, I wasn't fully locked down because I had on one TV, I had the Flyers game. On the other TV, I had WrestleMania. Once WrestleMania ended, we were locked in on the Flyers game, watched the entire third period. And from what I saw in that third period, the reason the Flyers were able to win that game, not just getting shots on goal, but the reason why they were getting so many more shots on goal is because they were just attacking the Penguins zone. And they were in their zone that entire third period up until they took that 2-goal lead thanks to the Porter Martone.
Yeah, and then they let off the gas.
And then they let off the gas, which I think, in my opinion, letting off the gas was a mistake, in my opinion.
Especially in hockey. Hockey's literally ridiculous, especially with the deflections and stuff. And the game ended 3-2 with a one-on-one shootout situation, like the shooter deking out the goalie from the side of the net. And if you remember, as a Flyers fan growing up, the last time that we tasted any type of success, as in like getting to the Stanley Cup in 2010, we lost the Stanley Cup championship on a sideways angled goal that literally came from behind the net that literally lost us the Stanley Cup. So I'm always scarred just from that situation itself. But when you see the Pittsburgh Penguins get a clean look after tying it up with a minute left, and I asked my roommate, who's a big diehard Flyers fan, I was watching the game with him 6 minutes left. I'm like, yo, are they just going to clear it? They try and clear it the entire time with this lead? And that's what they started doing.
Yeah,
and once you start doing that, it just starts chaos.
It was making me so goddamn nervous. And then the Penguins score with a minute to go. And then that's when it starts to get a bit scary, right? However, I forget if they kept the empty net after that, but then there was the power play. I think it was 4-on-4 in the final minute, and I forget if Pittsburgh
it was empty net the entire time.
Yeah, so, and then in the final, what was the final 9 seconds game that shot?
Yeah.
That,
And
Dude,
also,
like,
the thing
I
is,
froze in like fear for a second.
and also with hockey is like
My
when the
heart
team
was
scores,
fucking pounding that.
when the
final
team
minute,
scores
dude.
like that, and like that man advantage is huge because when you score a goal and it now is a one goal deficit with like a minute left, and the pressure that team with that extra man start to put on you, that's why you saw they started winning every faceoff in the zone, and the puck was just sitting in the Flyers' defensive zone the entire time, but. I mean, they held it down and they did what they needed to do.
Yeah.
And the Pittsburgh Penguins haven't like literally won a playoff series since like 2018 or 2019. So this is a team that they have two of the greatest players of all time, Evgeny Malkin, and obviously the greatest player of the generation in Sidney Crosby, like the GOAT.
I would go with Ovechkin, but
I mean, as an overall player, I would say that Sidney Crosby is a little bit better, but obviously, I mean, you pick or choose your two guys. It's like Kevin Durant and LeBron James pretty much. I mean, LeBron's better than Kevin Durant, but I think the conversation between those two guys is a little bit closer. But for the Flyers, that like Philadelphia, I'm not going to mask myself as like the biggest hockey guy, but I love hockey. I played lacrosse growing up, so actually when I played Washington Township, you're like a neighbor of Washington Township, correct? Soul guy growing up.
well, I grew up in Washington Township.
You would have went to Washington Township High School if you didn't go to GCI Tech?
That is correct.
So I played Washington Township in lacrosse because I played lacrosse pretty much, hockey on grass. You talked a lot of shit on it last week, but on the last podcast saying some crazy shit. But
What did I say last week?
you said that lacrosse players were literally pussies. You literally straight
I'll
up
fuck up any lacrosse player.
yeah, my
right
friend was
now.
a Penn State lacrosse captain. I'll call him up right now. But the Flyers' current coach when in middle school his son was on Washington Township's lacrosse team.
Oh, no
and
kidding.
we played against
Didn't
them.
know
And
that.
we actually upset them and beat them. But that's also, it's like cool to see this era of Flyers hockey have success because Danny Briere's calling the shots. And he's like a Flyers, like for us people our age, like he's a Flyers like player legend.
Oh,
to see him
absolutely.
calling the shots in the front office now.
Yeah.
And then have a guy like Tocchet, who was a former player himself. It's like, dude, like this is like. And did you see what Tocchet said?
No.
Like, I want to see them had that Penguins hate. Like he's like that Joe
Really?
Mazzulla for the Flyers.
Okay.
Like, dude, like I'm fully on board. Their
Dude,
last coach was like suspending players for no reason. Messing with play time of certain guys.
But he was Italian. But he
mean.
He had a vowel at the end of his last name.
But
He
I
was a
think just as
Paisan.
Philadelphia, well, just as we follow these other three sports obviously more heavily, but now they've gained the respect of a lot of people say like, oh, you hop on the Flyers bandwagon. The Flyers have really been in the background. It's like they went through that same. The Eagles kind of did it a little bit too, but they're always the kings of the town. That Philly stretch from 2011 to 2018 was horrific.
2012.
2012, yeah. I mean, 2011 is when it all flared out, and we were supposed to be really good. That was right around when the Eagles were getting bad when they had the dream team.
That was their best regular season of all time.
The Sixers were right around that time. They all had that time period where they didn't have the respect, but like the Phillies, won a championship a couple of years ago. The Sixers had Allen Iverson.
For those 5 years, Philadelphia was a baseball city. For those 5 years, from 2008 to 2011, Philadelphia was a baseball city.
Yeah, but all those teams were we're talking the worst teams in the league for years on end. The Sixers were so bad.
During
the Phillies had
during the
Cameron
era
up as their power
during
hitter.
the era of 2012 to 2016, it was just pure misery in Philly sports.
Yeah.
They all sucked.
So, the Flyers, what they were going through, because they added Matt Dichkov, really had people riled up, when he came onto the team last year and then produced 26 goals in his rookie season. Just got to the threshold of another 20-goal season at the end of this season. But the Flyers kind of, were just skating around in a way, as opposed to, the Sixers were the worst team in the league. And the Flyers, just hockey's a different sport. It's just crazy. You never know. The Flyers could look like on paper and they're not going to be that great this season. They're wearing the sleeves, 3.8% chance around the Olympic break for them to make the playoffs, and they wore the sleeves going into Game 1, and that just shows the type of team they are. But they weren't ever going at the very bottom, but all these other Philadelphia sports teams reached that because of poor management of the teams. But I say that for the bandwagon
they had
because
the one bad year in 2012. But outside of that, actually 2020 as well.
But they got on the back burner because of how popular Philadelphia sports media is with these other teams. But the Flyers, they kind of were touching around that where they weren't doing enough to have respect, and then they already were behind the eight ball, just being the hockey team of the town with some of these other town if you're a Canadian, like, imagine how big a hockey fans and Flyers fans would be if, like, we lived in Canada. You know what I mean? If
Well,
they were
there
a Canadian
was,
team.
during that stretch of misery in Philly sports, there was one year, I forget what exact year it was, but there was one year where the Flyers were the only Philly sports team to make the playoffs.
Well, that's what I was saying is, like, during when all those other teams were bad, the Flyers were, like, not as bad as all those other teams. They were kind of holding the weight and dragging weight, but they didn't get to, like, any huge, big moments in the town. But a lot of people are like, oh, why are you jumping on a bandwagon now? It's like, bro, we've went through it with all the sports. Like, I'm just a diehard. I mean, my dad's a 45-year head football coach. I've always loved football. Eagles are, like, one of the most popular teams there is everywhere. The Eagles could go 0-17 for 5 straight seasons, and I'm watching every single minute of Eagles football.
Yeah.
Sixers can win 9 games, and I love basketball so much. I've always have loved basketball as a whole, just not just the Sixers, just all of basketball, but, you know, the Sixers as well. I'll always watch them. Phillies, there was a time period where I wasn't paying as much attention to the Phillies because they were that bad.
Yeah,
the Flyers
weren't
really gaining the respect of the town for them to be consistent viewership of Philadelphia sports fans as opposed to what was going on with the other teams. And now it seems like we're not going to compare the other sports because we just want to be 4 for 4s, and that's just what it is at the end of the day. But they have like an opportunity to where they could get themselves back on the totem pole of notoriety to like back to that Sixers level where we're hype about VJ Edgecombe as the number 1 overall pick. We also got Porter Martone, who's becoming a household name. We got Matvey Michkov. We have Travis Konechny, who's been in the fold forever. Like, they're carving back themselves up this spot in Philadelphia sports where we don't have to just kind of force. I know you're a soccer guy, but like we should not be talking about the Union in place of the Flyers. You know what I mean?
Well, no, I mean for a few years, the Union absolutely deserved more attention than the Philadelphia Flyers. They were, they were the best team in the East in the MLS. They should have won that cup, but no, with how good the Union were, I mean, they deserved more attention than the Flyers at that point in time. Now the Union look awful.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, when we look at it on paper, we should be hyping up the NHL team when they're playing correctly.
When they're playing correctly. But I mean, when you look at how bad the Flyers were and how good the Union were playing, I think it was warranted that the Union were to get more attention than the Flyers at that period in time.
But I think we made a joke about it, like one podcast where we never talked about the Flyers up until that point, and that was like 80 podcasts in, and it took for us to give them. It finally took us episode 132 of the Paisan Sports podcast to give them 10, 15, 20 minutes as we budget our time usually of like an hour of like 30-minute segments between all the other sports, and we're giving them that type of love. And we'll probably, moving forward, that's probably what it's going to be close to.
If they're still in the playoffs a week from now, which I fully expect them to be, then we'll give them even more time next week.
How would you feel if this is the situation that would play out? Both Game 7s for the Sixers and the Flyers would be on the same day for round 1.
That sounds like a recipe for heartbreak.
Absolute emotional distress.
Yeah.
Like you celebrate one team losing than the other, or that one night where
I feel like,
Phillies lost the World Series.
As confident as I am in the Flyers winning the series, if they play a Game 7 the same night as the 76ers, just the way Philly sports usually goes, I would fully expect them to both lose that Game 7.
In the most possible,
most horrific way.
You think Kawhi Leonard's shot was
the most horrific way.
You think Kawhi's shot was bad.
In the most horrific way.
The
Sixers will blow a 20-point lead, and the Flyers will lose to a goal in the final 10 seconds.
We'll have like a Chris Webber timeout situation somehow or something happen.
Yeah.
But that about wraps it up for the Paisan Sports Podcast. I have one last segment to throw on you guys. We have formerly Elevation 5280 Sports, now Recliner Media. So with that being said, we have to give 52.8 seconds of time to Colorado sports right now. Let me put the timer on. So 52.8 seconds, we're going to go through the Colorado landscape and go. Jalen Waddle trade in the offseason. How much better does that make the Broncos?
That's a really good move for them.
We're a quarterback away in the playoffs this year versus the Patriots, and they didn't really have a receiving threat the whole year, and Bo Nix is pretty good.
Yeah, I like what I see out of Bo Nix. You add a guy like Jalen Waddle, I think that makes them a much more legitimate threat.
Nuggets. Wolves.
Fuck them.
How far do the Nuggets go in the playoffs? Just be honest, though. Just be honest. Like, Lakers are banged up. Spurs are good. The Thunder are the Thunder. We know that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, when you have the Spurs and the Thunder both in the playoffs, I don't give much confidence to the Nuggets.
Okay. Colorado Rockies. Mickey Mantle. How many? Mickey Mantle. How many home runs did he hit? Hurry up.
25.
I stopped it at 51.8 seconds. So
yeah,
any one last second comment? Ready? Go.
Nothing. I got nothing.
I got it at 52.8, but there's a 4 there. But we can round that down since it's not 5, so I actually did my job there. But that wraps it up for the Paisan Sports Podcast, episode 132. We're going to go watch the Sixers as it's about to begin. And, yeah, we'll possibly have some, like, TikTok videos coming out with some live reactions to the game if anything crazy happens, which I expect chaos and fireworks and popcorn. So, thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll be back to either, with tears in our eyes with what the Sixers do to us this next week, and if the Phillies keep losing, and if the Eagles don't make the right picks. But one thing we can hang our hats on is those fucking Flyers, man.
Go Flyers.